If someone had told me a single offer could feel heavier than a lifetime of debt, I'd have laughed. Crystal chandeliers in the Palazzo Aurelia VIP salon scattered prismatic shadows over Lena Lee's weary features as she balanced another tray of top-shelf whiskey. At 28, and 5 years into Silver City's most exclusive floor, she'd perfected the art of being unseen, an essential survival skill here. Her black uniform sat sharp, her smile rehearsed, her fatigue tucked beneath layers of polished courtesy. Another Mullen 25. Neat, she murmured, setting the amber pour before a woman whose mere presence ruled the entire VIP section. Veronica Beaumont didn't look up immediately. Her attention remained fixed on the poker table, where $500,000 sat in the center pot. At 45, the Sonterra oil magnate carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd built an empire from inherited wealth and ruthless business acumen. Her tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than Lena made in 6 months. Salt and pepper hair cut in a sharp bob framed a face that belonged on the cover of Forbes rather than in a smoky casino at 2 in the morning. "Thank you," Veronica said, her voice carrying the gentle draw of old money Houston. She glanced up, and for a moment their eyes met. Lena felt something shift in that gaze. Recognition of her as a person rather than a servant, perhaps, or maybe just exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. Lena nodded and turned to leave, but Veronica's voice stopped her. "Wait." The poker game continued without Veronica's participation. She'd folded apparently, though Lena couldn't imagine walking away from that much money. "Yes, ma'am." Veronica studied her with unsettling intensity. "You've been on your feet for how long?" The question caught Lena off guard. Patrons never asked about her well-being. "My shift started at 6 p.m. 8 hours. When do you get off?" 4 a.m. Lena shifted her weight, uncomfortable under the scrutiny. Other tables needed attention, and her manager would notice if she lingered too long with one guest, even a high roller. Veronica reached into her jacket and produced a business card. Heavy stock, embossed gold lettering, Beaumont Petroleum Holdings. "I'd like to make you an unusual proposition. Meet me in the lobby at 4:15. I promise it will be worth your time." Lena accepted the card reflexively, her fingers brushing against Veronica's perfectly manicured hand. "I don't, just conversation. Nothing inappropriate, but potentially life-changing." Veronica's gray eyes held hers. "For 15, I'll be waiting by the fountains." Before Lena could respond, Veronica returned to her game, dismissing her with the casual authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The rest of Lena's shift passed in a blur of confusion and curiosity. She tried to focus on her tables, on the mechanical rhythm of taking orders and delivering drinks. But her mind kept returning to Veronica Beaumont's piercing gaze and cryptic words. Life-changing. What could an oil magnate possibly want with a casino waitress? At 4:10 a.m., Lena clocked out and stood in the employee locker room, staring at her reflection in the scratched mirror. Dark circles shadowed her almond eyes despite her careful concealer application. Her black hair pulled into a tight bun for her shift now hung limp around her shoulders. She looked exactly like what she was. A woman barely keeping her head above water. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother's nurse. "Your mother had a difficult night. The doctor wants to discuss treatment options tomorrow." Lena closed her eyes and leaned against the cool metal lockers. Treatment options. That was code for "we need more money you don't have." The breast cancer had returned with a vengeance and her mother's insurance had already maxed out. The experimental treatment the oncologist recommended cost close to $1 million. A sum so astronomical it might as well have been $1 billion. She thought about ignoring Veronica's invitation. Nothing good came from late-night meetings with wealthy strangers. But something in the woman's eyes had seemed genuine, almost vulnerable beneath that armor of confidence. At 4:17 a.m., Lena found Veronica standing exactly where she'd promised. Silhouetted against the dancing fountains that had just begun their choreographed performance to Andrea Bocelli's voice. The oil magnate had removed her jacket, and her white silk shirt caught the colored lights from the water show. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Veronica said without preamble. "I wasn't sure either." Lena clutched her purse tighter, suddenly aware of how shabby her clearance rack clothes looked next to Veronica's understated elegance. "What's this about?" Veronica gestured toward the casino's exit. "Walk with me, please." They walked in silence through the palazzo's lobby, past the chilly glass ceiling that Lena had seen thousands of times, but never truly noticed until Veronica paused beneath it. Her face tilted upward toward the explosion of colored glass flowers. Beauty exists even in places designed to separate people from their money, Veronica observed. Ironic, isn't it? Most people don't notice, Lena said. They're too focused on the tables. But you notice it wasn't a question. Veronica began walking again, leading them outside into the still warm October night. The strip glowed with neon promises, tourists still streaming past despite the late hour. They ended up at a quiet bench near the Montclair, away from the heaviest foot traffic. Veronica sat with perfect posture, her hands folded in her lap like a woman preparing to negotiate a business deal. I'm going to be direct because I suspect you appreciate directness. Veronica began. I'm offering you $1 million to spend one night with me. Lena's breath caught. Excuse me. Let me finish before you react. Veronica's voice remained calm. Matter of fact, I saw something in you tonight. A dignity, an intelligence, a presence that captivated me. I've been coming to Silver City for 15 years, and I've never made this offer to anyone before. Lena stood abruptly. I'm not a prostitute. I know. That's precisely why I'm interested. Veronica looked up at her, and in the harsh neon light, Lena saw loneliness etched in the lines around those gray eyes. I'm not asking for sex. I'm asking for companionship, conversation. A single evening where I'm not Veronica Beaumont, oil magnate and corporate shark, but just Veronica. A woman who wants to talk to someone who sees her as a person. You're offering $1 million for conversation. Skepticism dripped from Lena's voice. And dinner in my suite at the Wynn. You'd arrive at 7 p.m. We'd have dinner. We'd talk and you'd leave whenever you wish. Though I'd hope you'd stay until at least midnight. No physical contact beyond perhaps a handshake. You'd have complete control. Lena sank back onto the bench, her legs suddenly unsteady. $1 million. Her mother's treatment. Years of debt erased in a single night. It was insane, impossible, too good to be true. Why? The word came out as barely a whisper. Veronica was silent for a long moment, watching the distant fountains pulse with light and water. My wife died 3 years ago, cancer. I threw myself into work, expanded the company, made another fortune, and discovered that success is a hollow companion. I've been alone in rooms full of people for so long, I'd forgotten what genuine human connection felt like until I saw you tonight. The raw vulnerability in Veronica's confession caught Lena completely off guard. This wasn't a predator making a sleazy proposition. This was a grieving woman reaching out across an impossible divide. I'm not. Lena struggled with the words. I've never been with a woman. I'm not gay. Neither am I asking you to be. I'm asking you to share a meal and a conversation. Nothing more. Veronica reached into her purse and produced a check already made out for $1 million signed, but with the pay line blank. This is real. I'll have my attorney draw up a contract specifying exactly what is and isn't expected. You'd have complete legal protection. Lena stared at the check. 7 figures, life-changing money, her mother's life. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel for more romantic tales that explore the unexpected connections that change everything. I need to think, Lena said, voice unsteady. Of course. Take my number. Veronica slid over another card, this one with a handwritten line on the back. Call me by noon tomorrow if you're interested. If I don't hear from you, I'll understand, and I'll respect your decision. She rose with liquid poise, then paused. For what it's worth, Lena, yes, I read your name off your tag, you remind me of my wife. Not in looks, but in the way you carry quiet strength while shouldering more than anyone should. That's rare. That's valuable. That's worth $1 million to share for one evening. Before Lena could answer, Veronica melted into the drift of tipsy tourists and gamblers' luck, leaving Lena on a bench with a business card and a choice that would alter everything. Lena didn't sleep. Dawn smeared the sky in pink and gold outside her Eastfield studio while she stared at Veronica's card. The room was spotless but bare, a mattress on the floor, a tiny table with 2 mismatched chairs, a kitchenette made of a mini fridge and a hot plate. Everything she owned could be loaded into her decade-old Honda Civic in the cracked lot below. Her phone sat beside the card, both objects suddenly equal in weight. At 7 a.m., she called her mother's nurse. The doctor can see you at 10, Marissa said, her Filipino lilt warm but grave. Lena, sweetie, you need to prepare yourself. The options are limited. I'll be there. The Desert Valley Oncology Center smelled like antiseptic hope, an odor Lena had come to dread over the last 18 months. In the consultation room, Mei Lin looked smaller than 56 should allow. Cancer had carved away everything but the irreducible core of her. The bright floral scarf Lena gave her on Mother's Day wrapped her bare head with defiant cheer. "Sweetheart," Mei said, reaching for her. "You didn't have to take time off work." "Mom, stop." Lena clasped her mother's thin fingers, feeling the fragile bones beneath the skin. "Of course I'm here." Dr. Arjun entered with the practiced solemnity of someone who delivers hard news every day, thorough, kind, and ultimately devastating. The cancer had metastasized. Standard therapies had failed. There was an experimental immunotherapy protocol at Johns Hopkins showing promise, but insurance wouldn't touch it. "How much?" Lena asked, already bracing for the impossible. "The full course runs approximately $1,200,000, Dr. Arjun said gently. "I understand that's prohibitive for most families. There are clinical trials, but the waitlists, how long does she have without it?" Lena cut in. "Lena," her mother whispered, protesting. 6 months, perhaps 8, he said, face tightening. "With palliative care, we can keep her comfortable. I'll get the money." The words leapt out before thought could catch them. "For the experimental treatment. I'll find a way." Mei Lin began to cry, and Dr. Arjun excused himself with quiet tact. Lena held her mother as she wept into her shoulder, the paper card in Lena's pocket suddenly hot as a brand. Both of them knowing that finding a way was the kind of desperate promise people made when reality had become unbearable. "You've already sacrificed so much for me," Mei whispered when she could speak again. "Your college fund, your savings, your dreams of art school. Baby, I won't let you destroy your life trying to save mine." "Mom, listen to me." Mei pulled back, gripping Lena's shoulders with surprising strength. "I've made peace with this. I've lived a good life. I had you. That's enough." "It's not enough for me," Lena said fiercely. "You're only 56. You should have decades left. Grandchildren, retirement. All those things you used to dream about." "Dreams change." May's smile was sad but genuine. "My dream now is that you live your life without the burden of my illness crushing you. Promise me you won't do anything desperate or dangerous to get money you can't possibly acquire." Lena couldn't make that promise. Instead, she changed the subject, helping her mother back to her room and staying until Mei fell asleep mid-afternoon, exhausted from the emotional morning. In the hospital parking lot, Lena sat in her car and pulled out Veronica's card. Her phone showed 2:47 p.m. The noon deadline had passed. She'd missed her chance. Except Veronica had said to call by noon if you're interested. Lena was more than interested. She was desperate. And Veronica Beaumont, for all her wealth and power, had seemed equally desperate for something Lena possessed. The ability to see her as human rather than as a walking bank account. Lena dialed before she could talk herself out of it. Veronica answered on the second ring. "Lena, I'm late. I'm sorry. I had to take my mother to the doctor." "And is she all right?" The concern in Veronica's voice sounded genuine. "No." Lena's voice cracked. "She has cancer. Stage 4. There's a treatment that might save her, but it costs more than I'll make in 10 lifetimes." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of Veronica's breathing and distant traffic noise from Lena's end. "The offer stands," Veronica said quietly. "But I need you to understand something important. I'm not doing this out of pity. I'm not a charity. I genuinely want your company for an evening, and I'm willing to pay what it's worth to me. Your mother's situation doesn't change the terms, except perhaps to make me hope even more that you'll accept. I need to ask questions, set boundaries." Lena's hand shook so badly, she had to brace her phone against the steering wheel. "Of course, come to the Wynn at 5 o'clock. We'll discuss everything in detail before you make your final decision. The Tower Suites, penthouse level. Give your name at the private elevator. I'll have you cleared with security." "This is insane," Lena whispered. "Most worthwhile things are." Veronica's voice carried a smile Lena could almost see. 5 o'clock, if you don't show, I'll understand." The call ended, leaving Lena alone with her racing thoughts and impossible choice. She drove home, showered, and stood before her closet, trying to decide what one wore to negotiate $1 million deal for dinner conversation with a woman who was simultaneously a stranger and somehow familiar. She settled on simple black pants and a green silk blouse she'd bought for her mother's birthday dinner 2 years ago. Back when celebration still seemed possible. At 4:45 p.m., Lena walked into the Winds Tower Suites lobby and felt immediately out of place. Everything gleamed with understated luxury. From the marble floors to the massive flower arrangements to the guests who moved through the space with the casual confidence of people accustomed to five-star accommodations. "Miss Lee." A suited security guard approached. "Miss Beaumont is expecting you. This way, please." The private elevator required a key card. They rose in silence through the tower, Lena's ears popping as they ascended. When the doors opened directly into Veronica's penthouse, Lena's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Strip, the desert mountains beyond, and the burnt-orange sky of approaching sunset. The suite was bigger than most houses, a sprawling open-concept space decorated with contemporary art that probably cost more than Lena's entire apartment building. But what struck her most was how impersonal it felt, like a beautiful hotel room rather than anyone's home. Veronica stood by the windows, still dressed in business attire, but with her jacket removed and her shirt sleeves rolled up. She turned when Lena entered, and her expression softened with what looked like relief. "You came." "I came." Lena stayed near the elevator, suddenly aware of every difference between them. Money, age, education, power, experience. "I need to understand exactly what you're asking for." "Fair enough." Veronica gestured toward a seating area with leather couches and a coffee table bearing a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Would you like a drink or water? Coffee? Anything else?" "Water, please." Veronica poured sparkling water from a crystal pitcher, her movements precise and practiced. She handed Lena the glass, careful not to let their fingers touch, then sat across from her rather than beside her, maintaining physical distance that somehow made the conversation feel safer. "I've had my attorney draft a contract," Veronica began, producing a folder from the side table. "It specifies that our arrangement involves dinner and conversation from 7 p.m. until midnight or until you choose to leave earlier, whichever comes first. You're under no obligation to consume alcohol. You're free to leave at any time. Physical contact is limited to socially appropriate gestures, handshakes, perhaps helping you with your coat, nothing more intimate." Lena accepted the contract, scanning the dense legal language. It was surprisingly protective of her rights and remarkably specific about Veronica's limitations. "If I stay the full 5 hours, you give me $1 million for what amounts to being your dinner companion." Lena looked up from the contract. "This doesn't make sense." "It makes sense to me." Veronica leaned back, her gray eyes studying Lena's face. "I've been lonely for 3 years. I've had countless business dinners, networking events, fundraisers, and poker games. I've been surrounded by people who want something from me. Contracts, investments, connections. You're the first person in years who looked at me and saw a woman rather than a checkbook. Want to see how this unusual arrangement unfolds? Subscribe to our channel for more stories about unexpected connections and life-changing decisions." "But you don't know me," Lena protested. "I could be terrible company. I could be boring or awkward, or you won't be." Veronica's confidence was absolute. "I've spent my career reading people, assessing character in boardrooms and negotiation tables. I saw authenticity in you tonight. Something rare and valuable in a city built on illusion." Lena set down the contract and met Veronica's gaze directly. "I need you to understand something, too. I'm doing this for my mother. Not because I'm attracted to you or interested in women or looking for some sugar mama situation. This is a business transaction to save my mother's life." "I know." Veronica didn't look offended. "I appreciate your honesty. It makes this cleaner, actually. We both know exactly what we're getting." "What are you getting?" Lena asked. "Really?" Veronica was quiet for a long moment, her expression distant. When she spoke, her voice carried 3 years of accumulated grief. "My wife, Eleanor, died in a hospital room much like the one your mother occupies now. Breast cancer, ironically. For 6 months, I watched her waste away while doctors pumped her full of poison that couldn't save her. In the end, she weighed 90 pounds and couldn't remember my name half the time." Lena's throat tightened with unwanted empathy. "The last thing she said to me was, 'Don't become a ghost, Vic, promise me you'll stay alive, not just breathing.'" Veronica's jaw clenched. "I've broken that promise every day since." I've built an empire, made billions, and felt nothing. I've been a ghost in an expensive suit. Tonight, when you looked at me with those eyes that actually see people, I felt something. A spark of life I'd forgotten existed. The raw honesty in Veronica's confession stripped away all of Lena's cynicism and left her facing a truth she hadn't expected. They were both desperate, just for different kinds of salvation. I'll do it, Lena said. Not because of your sad story or because I pity you. I'll do it because I need the money and you're offering terms I can live with. Veronica nodded slowly. That's acceptable. Read the contract thoroughly. My attorney's number is on the last page if you want independent legal counsel to review it before signing. I don't have time for attorneys. Lena scanned the document again, looking for hidden clauses or dangerous loopholes. Finding none, she signed her name at the bottom. When do we do this? Tomorrow night, 7:00 p.m. I'll have dinner prepared. Any dietary restrictions or preferences I should know about? No. Lena stood, suddenly needing to escape before the magnitude of what she'd agreed to overwhelm her. I should go, of course. Veronica stood as well, maintaining that careful distance. Lena, thank you. Whatever happens tomorrow night, thank you for giving a ghost a chance to feel human again. Lena left without responding, her mind spinning with implications and impossibilities. In the elevator, she stared at her reflection in the polished brass doors and wondered if the woman looking back was brave or foolish, or simply too desperate to care about the difference. Her phone buzzed with a text from Veronica. Contract copy emailed to you. Check will be delivered by courier tomorrow afternoon. Dated for the evening after our dinner. That way you know I'm serious and I know you'll show up. Lena leaned against the elevator wall and started laughing. A slightly hysterical sound that echoed in the small space. She'd just agreed to have dinner with a billionaire lesbian oil magnate who wanted to pay her $1 million to talk. Her life had officially become more surreal than any movie plot. But as the elevator deposited her back in the normal world of the lobby, Lena felt something unexpected stirring in her chest. Not quite hope, but perhaps its distant cousin. For the first time in 18 months, her mother's death sentence had a potential reprieve that was worth one evening of awkward conversation with a lonely stranger. Even if that stranger made Lena's pulse race in a way she didn't want to examine too closely. Chapter 3. That evening, at 6:58 p.m., Lena hovered by the Tower Suites elevator, finger poised above the call button. She'd cycled through 3 outfits before settling on a simple navy dress, elegant without being provocative, borrowed from her friend Tara, who demanded the full story the moment Lena asked for wardrobe help. Dinner with a billionaire? Tara had squealed. This is either the best or worst decision you've ever made. Lena still wasn't sure which. The elevator ride felt both endless and too brief. When the doors opened on Veronica's penthouse, soft jazz floated from hidden speakers and the city's lights glittered through floor-to-ceiling glass like earthbound stars. Dusk had deepened the desert sky to purples and indigos. Veronica stepped out from the kitchen in gray slacks and a cornflower cashmere sweater that sharpened the blue of her eyes. Her hair was down, silver threads catching light like mercury. She looked younger, less armored than in her suits. Hi, Veronica said, the single word carrying both nerves and genuine warmth. Hi, Lena answered, stepping in, clutching her borrowed purse like a lifeline. You look beautiful. Heat rose to Lena's cheeks. Thank you. You look different. Relaxed. That's the goal tonight. For both of us. She gestured to the dining area, where a table for 2 waited under white linen, crystal, and fresh flowers. I wasn't sure what you'd like, so I asked the chef to prepare options. The spread could have fed 6, grilled salmon, filet mignon, roasted vegetables, 3 salads, and magazine-worthy sides. This is a lot, Lena said, overwhelmed. I got carried away, Veronica admitted, a little sheepish. I wanted you to have choices. We can eat whatever you like and ignore the rest. They sat across from one another. Veronica poured herself wine but left Lena's glass untouched. No questions, just the quiet courtesy of assuming she might prefer not to drink. The small consideration loosened something in Lena's shoulders. Tell me about your mother, Veronica asked as they began to serve themselves. What was she like before the cancer? The question startled Lena. Most people dodged the topic as if suffering were contagious. Veronica's expression, though, held only sincere interest. A force, Lena said, a smile tugging despite the ache. She immigrated from China at 25, worked 3 jobs to put herself through nursing school, and raised me alone after my father left. She never complained, never quit. Every birthday she baked these ridiculous cakes, unicorns, castles, whatever I dreamed up. She made magic out of nothing. She sounds remarkable. She is. Lena prodded at her salmon. She gave up everything for me, worked herself to the bone so I'd have chances she didn't. And now I can't even save her. You're trying, Veronica said gently. You're here. That takes courage, or desperation. Sometimes they're the same, Lena murmured. Veronica took a sip, gaze turned inward. Eleanor used to say courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing the thing that terrifies you because the alternative is worse. Your wife sounds wise. She was. Veronica's smile was sad and fond. She taught philosophy at Harborview. She could argue any position with equal conviction and make you question everything you thought you knew about the world. Stubborn, brilliant, and utterly infuriating when she wanted to be. How did you meet? At a protest of all places, Veronica's eyes lit up with the memory. This was 20 years ago. Before I inherited the company, I was working in my father's legal department, and there was a big environmental lawsuit against Beaumont Petroleum. Eleanor was leading the opposition. We were on opposite sides of the picket line and she was giving the most passionate speech I'd ever heard about corporate responsibility and ethical business practices. Lena found herself leaning forward, genuinely interested. What did you do? I walked across the line and asked her to dinner. Veronica laughed. She threw a cup of coffee at me, iced thankfully, and told me I could buy her dinner when Beaumont Petroleum implemented the reforms she was demanding. So, I went back to the office, convinced my father to meet with the Environmental Coalition, and negotiated a settlement that included most of Eleanor's proposals. You changed company policy to get a date. I changed company policy because she was right. The date was just a bonus. Veronica's expression softened with remembered love. She made me better, made me question the easy path of inherited privilege, and actually think about the impact of my choices. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the initial awkwardness fading into something more natural. Lena discovered that Veronica was easy to talk to. She listened without judgment, asked thoughtful questions, and shared stories that made her seem less like a billionaire magnate and more like a woman who'd loved deeply and lost everything. What about you? Veronica asked as they moved to dessert, a decadent chocolate mousse. Why casino work? You mentioned art school earlier. What happened to that dream? Lena hesitated, used to people actually caring about her abandoned ambitions. My mom got sick right before I was supposed to start at the Art Institute in San Francisco. I'd gotten a partial scholarship, but between tuition, living expenses, and her medical bills, it wasn't possible. So, I stayed in Silver City, got a job at the Palazzo because the tips are good, and kept thinking I'd go back to school someday. Someday became 5 years. Do you still draw? Paint sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep, Lena stirred her mousse without eating it. Mostly I sketch portraits of people I see at work. Gamblers, tourists, dealers. All these faces passing through Silver City, looking for something they'll never find in a casino. I'd like to see your work sometime. The sincerity in Veronica's voice made Lena's throat tight. They're not very good. I doubt that. Veronica set down her spoon. Lena, can I be honest about something? Isn't that what you're paying for? Honesty? Veronica flinched slightly at the reminder of their arrangement, but didn't argue. I wasn't entirely truthful about why I made this offer. Yes, I was attracted to your dignity and presence, but there's more. When I saw you tonight at the casino, exhausted and struggling, but still holding yourself together with such grace, you reminded me of Eleanor near the end. She faced death with more courage than I'm facing life. Lena didn't know what to say to that. I think I was hoping that spending time with you might teach me something about surviving the unsurvivable. Veronica's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Pathetic, isn't it? A billionaire trying to buy lessons and resilience from someone living paycheck to paycheck. It's not pathetic. Lena surprised herself by reaching across the table to touch Veronica's hand. The first physical contact beyond their initial handshake. It's human. We're all just trying to survive whatever life throws at us with whatever tools we have available. Veronica's fingers tightened around Lena's for a moment before Lena pulled back, suddenly aware of the intimacy of the gesture. They moved to the living area after dinner, sitting on opposite ends of a long leather couch with careful space between them. The city lights provided a stunning backdrop. Silver City spreading out below them in a glittering display of neon desperation. An electric hope. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Veronica said suddenly. "Something real?" Lena considered deflecting. But the vulnerability Veronica had shown deserved equal honesty. "Sometimes I resent my mother. Not for being sick. I'd never resent that. But for all the years before when she sacrificed so much that I felt guilty for existing. Every time she worked an extra shift or skipped buying herself something nice so I could have new school clothes. It made me feel like a burden, like I was too expensive to love. Lena, I know it's terrible. She gave me everything, and here I am complaining about it." Lena's voice thinned. "But I spent my whole childhood feeling like I owed her a debt I could never repay. And now, with the cancer," her words broke. "Now I finally have a chance to balance the scales, and it still isn't enough. It's never enough." Veronica shifted closer without touching. "That isn't terrible, that's honest. And for what it's worth, I doubt your mother ever wanted you to feel indebted. Parents sacrifice not to create accounts to settle, but to love. Did you and Eleanor want children?" "We tried, fertility treatments, adoption applications, the whole gauntlet. It never happened." Veronica's gaze drifted. "Eleanor used to say maybe we weren't meant to be parents because we had enough love between us to fill a lifetime. After she died, I was grateful we hadn't had kids. I wouldn't have had the strength to care for them through that grief. Do you regret it?" "Every day, and not at all." A small, rueful smile. Life lives in contradictions. If this story is drawing you in, please subscribe. We share more about the mess and courage of human connection. They talked for hours, ranging from confessions to lighter terrain, favorite books, mortifying moments, dream trips, childhood scraps. For the first time in months, Lena laughed unguardedly at Veronica's tale of barging into a corporate merger meeting, drunk on tequila, on her 30th birthday. "You didn't," Lena wheezed, giggling. "I absolutely did. Walked straight into a Goldman Sachs conference room and declared capitalism a pyramid scheme and suggested we all become organic farmers." Veronica grinned. "My father was apoplectic." Eleanor howled. "I was banned from company tequila for a year. I can't picture you drunk and philosophical. A dark era." The smile faded a notch. "Eleanor and I were in our first real crisis. I'd just inherited the company after my father's heart attack, and the pressure was grinding me down. She was ready to leave if I couldn't separate work from life. That party was her intervention. Get drunk, act ridiculous, remember you're human. Did it work?" "Eventually, plus a lot of therapy and couples counseling." Veronica checked her watch and blinked. "It's nearly midnight." Lena glanced at her phone. 11:47 p.m. The evening had slipped away in conversation so effortless it felt unreal. By the terms of the contract, she could leave now with $1 million and never see Veronica again. "I should go," Lena said, without moving. "You should," Veronica agreed, also still. "Though I hope you don't." "Why?" "We fulfilled the terms." Veronica turned fully toward her. In the soft light, her expression held something Lena couldn't quite name, longing, maybe, or the tentative hope of someone afraid to want too much. "Because I haven't felt this alive in 3 years. Because you've made me remember what it feels like to connect with another person without pretense or agenda." Because Veronica hesitated, then continued softly. "Because I don't want this to end." Lena's heart raced. "Veronica, I'm not. I can't be what you need. I'm not gay. This was a business arrangement." "I know. And I'm not asking for anything more than you can give." Veronica's voice held no pressure, no expectation. "But maybe we could do this again. Not for money, just as friends, people who understand what it's like to watch someone you love disappear into illness." The offer was tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Lena stood, needing physical distance to think clearly. "I need to process all of this. Tonight was overwhelming." "Of course." Veronica stood as well, walking her to the elevator. "The check will be couriered to your address tomorrow morning." "No. Strings attached regardless of whether we see each other again." At the elevator doors, Lena paused. "Thank you for everything. For the money obviously, but also for foreseeing me. For making me feel valuable beyond what I can provide for someone else. Thank you for reminding me I'm more than my grief and my bank account." Veronica extended her hand for a formal handshake, honoring their contract terms even at the end. But when Lena clasped Veronica's hand, something electric passed between them. A jolt of connection that made her breath catch and her carefully constructed walls crack just slightly. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Lena saw her own confusion reflected in Veronica's gaze. Lena pulled away quickly, stepping into the elevator. "Goodbye, Veronica." "Goodbye, Lena. I hope your mother's treatment is successful." The elevator doors closed on Veronica's sad smile, and Lena leaned against the wall, her hand still tingling from their brief contact. She'd spent the evening maintaining careful emotional distance, treating this like the business transaction she'd insisted it was. But somewhere between dessert and midnight, something had shifted. Veronica had stopped being a stranger offering money and become a person. Complex, wounded, and unexpectedly compelling. Lena drove home in a daze, her mind replaying moments from the evening. The way Veronica's eyes crinkled when she laughed. The vulnerability in her voice when she spoke about Eleanor. The careful respect she'd shown. Never pushing boundaries. Never making Lena feel pressured or uncomfortable. And that handshake at the end, that spark of something Lena didn't want to name. She parked outside her apartment building and sat in the darkness trying to organize her chaotic thoughts. She wasn't attracted to Veronica. She couldn't be. She'd dated men exclusively her entire life. She'd never even considered the possibility of being with a woman. Except when Veronica had moved closer on the couch, Lena's pulse had quickened. When their hands touched across the dinner table, warmth had flooded through her body, and that final handshake had left her breathless in a way that felt dangerously like desire. "No," Lena said aloud to her empty car. "You're just confused, grateful, emotionally vulnerable. This isn't attraction. It's desperation and relief manifesting as something else." Her phone buzzed with a text from Veronica. "Made it home safely." Lena stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. The appropriate response would be brief, professional. Instead, she typed, "Yes, thank you for tonight." It was unexpectedly wonderful. Veronica's response came immediately. "For me too. Sleep well, Lena." Lena clutched her phone and realized she was smiling like a teenager after a first date. This was dangerous. This was not part of the plan. She was supposed to take the money, save her mother, and move on with her life, not develop feelings for a grieving billionaire who made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. Chapter 4. The Awakening. The check arrived at 9 a.m. via courier. $1 million made out to Lena Lee, signed by Veronica Beaumont. Lena held the slip of paper in her shaking hands and felt the weight of her mother's life balanced in those printed numbers. She deposited the check immediately, half expecting it to bounce despite Veronica's assurances it didn't. By noon, her account showed a balance that made her dizzy. By 2 p.m., she'd made the first payment to Johns Hopkins and scheduled her mother's intake appointment for the following week. May cried when Lena told her about the treatment, asking repeatedly where the money came from. Lena told a carefully edited version a wealthy patron at the casino who'd learned about her situation and wanted to help. It wasn't entirely a lie. "An angel," May whispered, clutching Lena's hand. "God sent us an angel." Lena thought about Veronica's sad gray eyes and broken smile. Angel wasn't the word she'd use, but she didn't correct her mother. For 3 days, Lena tried to return to normal life. She picked up extra shifts at the Palazzo, threw herself into arrangements for her mother's treatment, and determinedly didn't think about Veronica Beaumont. Except she thought about her constantly. Veronica's laugh echoed in her mind during quiet moments. The memory of her vulnerability made Lena's chest ache, and that electric handshake haunted her dreams, transforming into scenarios that left Lena waking up confused and breathless and deeply unsettled about what her subconscious was trying to tell her. On the 4th day, Tara cornered her during their break in the employee locker room. "Okay, spill, you've been walking around like a zombie with a secret. Did the billionaire dinner go badly? Did she try something inappropriate?" Tara's protective streak was fierce. They'd been friends since Lena's first week at the casino. Bonded over terrible customers and worse management. "No, nothing like that. She was perfect, respectful, interesting, kind." Lena slumped against her locker. "That's the problem." "How is that a problem? You got your money. Your mom gets treatment. Everyone wins." She asked if we could see each other again as friends. Tara's eyebrows shot up and I said I'd think about it, except I can't stop thinking about it. About her? Tara, I think I might be. Lena couldn't finish the sentence. Attracted to a woman? Tara replied gently. Lena, that's okay. Sexuality isn't always black and white. But I'm not gay. I've never been interested in women. I dated Ethan for 2 years. I've only ever wanted men until now. Tara studied her face. Look, I'm not going to label you or tell you what you are. But I've known you for 5 years, and I've never seen you look at anyone, male or female, the way your face lights up when you talk about this Veronica person. Maybe it's not about gender. Maybe it's about connection. Lena wanted to argue, but the truth in Tara's words cut too close. She hadn't connected with anyone like this since ever. Actually, even with Ethan, there had been a careful distance she'd maintained, protecting herself from needing someone too much. I don't know what to do, Lena admitted. Do you want to see her again? Yes. So much it scares me. Then text her. Tara's smile was knowing. Life's too short to ignore something that makes you feel alive. Your mom's situation should have taught you that. That evening, Lena sat in her apartment staring at her phone. Veronica hadn't contacted her since that first night, respecting Lena's need for space. The ball was entirely in Lena's court. She typed and deleted 7 different messages before settling on simple honesty. Are you free for coffee tomorrow? I'd like to talk. Veronica's response came within minutes. Yes. Tell me where and when. They met at a small cafe off the strip, away from the tourist crowds and casino glitter. Veronica arrived exactly on time, dressed casually in jeans and a cream sweater that made her look younger and less intimidating than her usual power suits. Hi, Veronica said, hovering awkwardly near the table Lena had claimed. May I sit? Of course, I invited you. Lena gestured to the chair across from her, struck by how nervous Veronica seemed, like she was afraid Lena might bolt at any moment. They ordered coffee. Black for Veronica, vanilla latte for Lena, and sat in uncomfortable silence until their drinks arrived. Finally, Lena forced herself to speak. I need to be honest about something. That night we spent together affected me more than I expected. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, and it's confusing because I don't understand what I'm feeling. Veronica's expression remained carefully neutral. What do you think you're feeling? I don't know. Gratitude, obviously. You saved my mother's life, but it's more than that. When I think about you, my heart races. When I remember how you looked at me, I feel. Lena struggled for words. I feel seen in a way I've never experienced before. And it terrifies me because I'm not gay. And I don't know how to process attraction to a woman when I've only ever been interested in men. Veronica took a slow sip of her coffee, giving herself time to formulate a response. Lena, I'm going to be very clear because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. I am attracted to you physically, intellectually, emotionally, but I would never pressure you to explore something you're not ready for or interested in. Our evening together was beautiful. And I'd treasure your friendship, even if that's all it could ever be. But what if I want to explore it? The words tumbled out before Lena could stop them. What if I'm curious but terrified? What if I've spent my whole life assuming I was straight without ever actually examining whether that was true or just default? Then we take it slowly. No pressure, no expectations. Veronica reached across the table, palm up, offering but not demanding. We could start by spending time together, getting to know each other without the artificial constraints of a contract or the weight of financial obligation. Just Lena and Veronica, 2 people who connected unexpectedly. Lena placed her hand in Veronica's, and that electric spark was still there, undeniable and impossible to rationalize away. I'm scared. So am I. Veronica's thumb traced gentle circles on Lena's palm. I haven't felt anything like this since Eleanor. I'm terrified of dishonoring her memory, of moving too fast, of wanting something I might not be allowed to have. But I'm more terrified of being a ghost for the rest of my life. They sat like that, hands clasped across a coffee shop table. While around them, the world continued its oblivious motion. Gradually, Lena's fear began to transform into something else. Curiosity, anticipation, the tentative hope that maybe she was discovering something true about herself rather than betraying who she was. My mom's treatment starts next week in Port Camden, Lena said. I'll be gone for at least a month, maybe longer, depending on how she responds. Disappointment flickered across Veronica's face, quickly masked. Of course, family comes first. But Lena squeezed Veronica's hand. But maybe you could visit if you wanted to. Port Camden is not that far by private jet, and I'd like to not lose this, whatever this is. Veronica's smile was brighter than Silver City lights. I'd like that very much. They finished their coffee and walked through downtown Silver City, hands still intertwined, talking about everything and nothing. Veronica pointed out buildings owned by Beaumont Petroleum, sharing stories about business deals and corporate battles. Lena described her favorite spots in the city, hidden murals in the Arts District, the secret garden at the Springs Preserve, the quiet stretch of Red Rock Canyon where she went to sketch. Show me, Veronica said impulsively. Show me your Silver City. Not the tourist version, your version. So Lena drove them in her beat-up Honda. Veronica gamely folding herself into the passenger seat without complaint to her favorite overlook at Red Rock. They hiked a short trail to a viewpoint where the desert spread out in shades of rust and gold, the strip visible in the distance like a mirage. This is where I come when the casino gets too claustrophobic, Lena explained, settling onto a flat rock. All those people chasing luck and losing money. And then there's this real and ancient and completely indifferent to human drama. Veronica sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with me. They watched the sunset paint the desert in impossible colors, magenta and orange and deep purple shadows. As darkness fell and the temperature dropped, Veronica slipped off her jacket and draped it around Lena's shoulders without being asked. That's very chivalrous, Lena said, oddly touched by the gesture. Eleanor used to say, I had an overdeveloped protective instinct. Veronica's voice held fondness rather than pain. She was probably right. Tell me more about her if it's not too painful. Veronica was quiet for a moment, then began speaking in a voice thick with memory. She was stubborn as hell, refused to let me win arguments even when she knew I was right. She sang off key in the shower and burned everything she tried to cook. She read philosophy papers to me at breakfast and debated ethics over dinner. She made me question every assumption I'd built my life on and forced me to become a better person than I would have been without her. She sounds incredible. She was. And she'd like you. I think you have that same quality of seeing beneath surfaces, refusing to accept easy answers. Veronica turned to look at Lena in the gathering darkness. She'd tell me to stop being a coward and just kiss you already. Lena's breath caught. Is that what you want to do? Very much, but only if you want it, too. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the moment, the decision point between her old life and something entirely new and terrifying and possibly wonderful. Every rational part of her brain screamed caution. She barely knew this woman. She'd never kissed a woman before. This could be a disaster. But Lena had spent her entire life being careful, playing it safe, putting everyone else's needs before her own desires. For once, she wanted to be brave. Kiss me, she whispered. Veronica moved slowly, giving Lena every opportunity to change her mind. Her hand cupped Lena's cheek with infinite gentleness, her thumb brushing across Lena's lower lip. Their eyes met in the darkness, and Lena saw her own nervousness reflected back. When their lips finally met, Lena understood why people wrote songs and poems about kissing. It was soft and tentative and nothing like kissing the men she'd dated before. Veronica tasted like coffee and possibility, and the way she held Lena like something precious that might break made Lena's entire body come alive with sensation she'd never experienced. They pulled apart slowly, both breathing hard. Veronica searched Lena's face anxiously. Are you okay? Lena laughed, slightly hysterical. I just kissed a woman for the first time in my life. I'm really okay. More than okay. Can we do that again? The second kiss was deeper, more confident. Lena's hands tangled in Veronica's silver-streaked hair, pulling her closer. Veronica's arms slid around Lena's waist, and under the first pricks of desert starlight something fundamental shifted inside her. She wasn't straight, maybe never had been. Maybe she'd just never met anyone who made the question worth asking. When they finally eased apart, foreheads pressed together, both of them were grinning like fools. So, Veronica said, slightly breathless. I think we can safely conclude there's chemistry. Just a little, Lena teased, and then laughed at the understatement. Veronica, what are we doing? This is ridiculous. You're a billionaire. I serve whiskey on a casino floor. You live in Houston, I'm in Silver City. My life is chaos. How could this possibly work? Probably it can't, Veronica agreed cheerfully. But Eleanor taught me the best things are impossible, until they aren't. Want to try being impossible together? Are you rooting for Lena and Veronica? Subscribe to our channel for more stories about finding love in unlikely places, and the courage it takes to become who you are. Lena answered by kissing her again, which said everything. They drove back with fingers laced, soft jazz murmuring from the radio, neither of them really listening. Veronica walked her to the apartment door, a first date courtesy that felt absurdly formal after making out like teenagers on desert rock. When do you fly to Port Camden? Veronica asked. Sunday. 5 days, Lena said, leaning into the door, reluctant to puncture the night. Can I see you again before then? What are you doing tomorrow? Whatever you want me to be doing, Veronica said, smiling. They settled on dinner somewhere quiet, a place where conversation could stretch without interruption. Veronica left Lena with a chaste kiss to the cheek and a promise to text. Inside, Lena sank against the closed door and touched her mouth where Veronica's lips had been. Her phone buzzed. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for taking a chance on something impossible. Sleep well, beautiful Lena. She typed back, thank you for waiting while I caught up to what you already knew. Sweet dreams, Veronica. She fell asleep. Smiling, dreams full of copper skies, silver-streaked hair, and the possibility of becoming someone she hadn't known to imagine. The next 4 days blurred into stolen hours and deepening threads. They ate at a tucked-away Italian spot where Veronica had her laughing over catastrophic business trips. They wandered an art museum, Veronica listening carefully while Lena dissected technique with the precision of someone who'd set aside a calling but never lost it. At midnight they drove to Lake Me and talked until dawn, childhood scrapes, favorite books, worst fears, preferred ice cream. With each mile and confession, Lena felt herself falling into something she couldn't stage manage or name. Veronica was brilliant and slyly funny, sharply capable and, beneath the armor, unexpectedly tender, attentive in ways that made Lena feel seen and kept. The pull between them only grew. Tentative brushes became more frequent, kisses lengthened, both of them mapping boundaries and finding new ones to cross. On Saturday, the last night before Lena's flight to Port Camden, Veronica invited her back to the Wynn penthouse for dinner. Lena accepted, knowing what the invitation might mean. Terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. The penthouse had been transformed. Candles flickered throughout the space, casting warm shadows. Soft music played. The dining table was set intimately for two, and the city lights provided their familiar backdrop. You went all out, Lena said, touched by the obvious effort. I wanted tonight to be special. Veronica helped Lena with her coat, her hands lingering on Lena's shoulders. Whatever happens or doesn't happen, I wanted you to know how much these past few days have meant to me. They ate slowly, savoring both the food and the conversation. Veronica had arranged for Lena's favorite dishes based on casual comments she'd made during their previous dinners, a level of attention that made Lena's heart ache with tenderness. After dinner, they moved to the couch, sitting close enough that their thighs touched. Veronica poured wine for both of them, and they sipped in comfortable silence, watching the city pulse with its endless neon heartbeat. I'm scared about leaving tomorrow, Lena admitted. Not just because of my mom's treatment, but because I'm afraid this, she gestured between them, will evaporate once we're apart. Like maybe it only works in the Silver City bubble where reality doesn't quite apply. Lena, look at me. Veronica set down her wine glass and took both of Lena's hands. This is real. What I feel for you is real. The distance will be hard, but we'll manage. I'll visit as often as you want me to. We'll video call every day. We'll make it work because what we have is worth the effort. How can you be so sure? We've known each other less than 2 weeks. Because I spent 3 years feeling nothing, and now I feel everything. Veronica's voice was fierce with certainty. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it's like to be fully alive. Because you've awakened something in me. I thought died with Eleanor. Hope. Lena kissed her, pouring everything she couldn't articulate into the contact. Veronica responded with equal passion, her hands sliding into Lena's hair, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, became more urgent, and Lena felt desire flooding through her body in waves that made her dizzy. Veronica, Lena gasped when they broke apart for air. I've never with a woman, I mean. I don't know what I'm doing. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. Veronica's breathing was ragged. Her pupils dilated with desire that matched Lena's own. We can just kiss. We can stop entirely. You're in control here. I don't want to stop. Lena stood, pulling Veronica up with her. I want to figure this out with you. Will you be patient with me? Veronica's answer was to kiss her again slowly and thoroughly until Lena forgot to be nervous. They moved to the bedroom, shedding clothes between kisses, Veronica murmuring reassurances, and asking permission at every stage. When they finally came together, skin against skin, Lena discovered that desire was the same regardless of gender. A building crescendo of sensation and connection that shattered her into pieces and rebuilt her into someone new. Afterwards, they lay tangled together in the enormous bed, Lena's head resting on Veronica's shoulder, their legs intertwined. The city lights filtered through the sheer curtains, casting patterns across their bodies. Are you okay? Veronica asked softly, her fingers tracing idle patterns on Lena's bare back. I'm more than okay. I'm kind of amazed. Lena propped herself up on one elbow to look at Veronica. Is it always like that? No. That was special. We're special. Veronica tucked a strand of hair behind Lena's ear with such tenderness that Lena's eyes prickled with unexpected tears. I think I'm falling in love with you, Lena blurted out, then immediately wanted to take it back. Too soon, too intense, too much. But Veronica's expression softened into pure joy. Good. Because I'm definitely falling in love with you. Have been since the moment you looked at me in the casino and saw a person instead of a bank account. They made love again, slower this time, learning each other's bodies and responses. Discovering that intimacy could be playful as well as passionate. Lena found herself laughing between kisses, amazed by how natural this felt, how right. As dawn approached, they lay facing each other, neither wanting to sleep and miss these last hours together. Promise me something, Veronica said. Promise me that whatever happens with your mother's treatment, whatever challenges we face with the distance, you'll be honest with me. If this becomes too much, if you decide you made a mistake, if you need space, tell me. Don't disappear trying to spare my feelings. I promise. Same goes for you. Lena traced Veronica's lips with her fingertip. And Veronica, I don't think this is a mistake. I think this might be the first truly right decision I've ever made for myself. They dozed fitfully, waking frequently to kiss and touch and reassure themselves that this wasn't a dream. When Lena's alarm went off at 7:00 a.m., announcing it was time to get ready for her afternoon flight, they both groaned in protest. I don't want to leave this bed, Lena said, burrowing deeper into Veronica's embrace. Then don't stay. Well, send for your mother and treat her here in Silver City. Veronica was only half joking. Tempting, but Johns Hopkins has the best protocol. I can't risk her life for my happiness. Lena forced herself to sit up, immediately missing the warmth of Veronica's body. Come shower with me. I promise to be good. They weren't good at all, and Lena ended up having to rush through packing while Veronica made breakfast. Scrambled eggs that were surprisingly edible, given Veronica's admitted incompetence in the kitchen. At the airport, Veronica insisted on accompanying Lena through security despite Lena's protests about public displays. I don't care who sees, Veronica said firmly. I'm not hiding you or what we have. If the tabloids want to speculate about my love life, let them. They stood at the security checkpoint, oblivious to the curious stares of other travelers, holding each other like they might never let go. Text me when you land, Veronica said. And when you get to the hotel and when your mom's settled. Actually, just text me constantly so I know you're okay. Lena laughed through her tears. I will. And you visit soon, right? You promised. Next weekend if you want me, sooner if you need me. Veronica cupped Lena's face in both hands. I love you. I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I love you, Lena Lee. And I'm not afraid to say it. I love you, too. Lena kissed her one more time, long and deep, uncaring about the audience. I'll see you soon. Walking away from Veronica was physically painful, like leaving part of herself behind. But as Lena boarded the plane and found her window seat, her phone buzzed with a text. Already missing you. Already counting the hours until I see you again. You've changed my life, Lena. Thank you for having the courage to change yours. Lena typed back, thank you for making me brave enough to be who I really am. This is only the start for us. She watched Silver City recede beneath the plane's wing, 5 years of getting by. The casino where a woman offered $1 million for dinner. The place she learned that the most impossible things can be the ones worth believing. Her mother's treatment would be grueling. The miles from Veronica would be hard. Coming out to friends and family would demand a courage she wasn't sure she had. But Lena had stood against impossible odds before and made it through. This time, she wasn't just surviving. She was living, mess, wonder, and all the beauty that comes from choosing love over fear. She opened her gallery and lingered on the selfie from that morning, both of them tousled and beaming, happiness bright in every pixel. Veronica's arm curved around her shoulders. Lena's head rested in the crook of Veronica's neck. The love between them was visible in the frame. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more tales of love, bravery, and becoming your true self. 3 months later, Lena stood in Veronica's Houston home, a sprawling ranch-style place that somehow felt warm despite its size. May was in remission. The experimental therapy had worked beyond anyone's hopes. 2 weeks earlier, she'd met Veronica and, after a first shock, had embraced the relationship with the unconditional love Lena had feared might not arrive. "Your happiness is what matters," May had said, clasping both their hands. "Anyone who looks at you the way this woman does is someone I'm honored to know." Lena had enrolled in art classes at Bayview University, finally returning to the dream she'd shelved 5 years earlier. Veronica insisted on covering tuition, and for once Lena accepted help without guilt, understanding that love means letting yourself be supported as much as you support. They still sparred sometimes, over Veronica's workaholic streak, Lena's stubborn independence, and whose turn it was to cook, but they also laughed constantly, loved openly, and built a life that honored Eleanor's memory while claiming their own future. One afternoon, Veronica came home to find Lena painting in the converted garage studio, sunlight pouring through the skylights Veronica had surprised her with. She slipped her arms around Lena from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. "That's beautiful," she murmured, taking in the canvas, a portrait of 2 women hand in hand at sunset, silhouetted against the desert. "It's us," Lena said. "That first night at Red Rock, when everything changed. When you made an impossible woman believe in second chances." Veronica kissed the curve of her neck. "When a casino waitress saved an oil magnate's life by saying yes to dinner." "Best $1 million you ever spent," Lena teased, turning in her arms. "Best investment of my life," Veronica corrected, and kissed her properly. "You've given me everything that matters, love, hope, a reason to wake up excited. I'd have paid $10 million for this." "Good thing I'm cheap," Lena grinned against her mouth. "Though I am raising my rates. Next dinner conversation will run at least $2 million. Done. I'll write the check. Now." Their laughter rolled through the studio, the sound of 2 people who found each other across impossible divides and chose to build something real from the unlikeliest beginning. That night, they had dinner with May, who'd moved into the guest house on Veronica's property and was thriving in her recovery. As Lena watched her mother and her partner trading stories and laughter across the table, she felt a contentment she'd never imagined possible. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tara. "So, when's the wedding? Because, you know I'm calling maid of honor." Lena glanced at Veronica, who was refilling May's wine glass with the careful attention she brought to everything involving Lena's mother. As if sensing Lena's gaze, Veronica looked up and smiled. That private smile reserved only for Lena, full of love and promise and shared secrets. "Soon," Lena typed back. "Very soon, because when you found something impossible and made it real through courage and love and the willingness to risk everything for a chance at happiness, you didn't let it go. You held on tight and built a future brick by impossible brick." Lena had walked into the Palazzo Aurelia VIP salon, looking for tips to pay her mother's medical bills. She'd walked out having discovered her true self, found the love of her life, and learned that sometimes the most life-changing propositions come from the most unexpected sources. "What are you thinking about?" Veronica asked, reaching across the table to take Lena's hand. "How a single night changed everything. How saying yes to the impossible led me exactly where I needed to be." And Lena squeezed Veronica's fingers. "How grateful I am that you saw something in a tired casino waitress worth $1 million. "I saw everything," Veronica said softly. "I saw my future. I saw my heart walking around outside my body. I saw the woman I'd spend the rest of my life loving." She paused, her gray eyes holding Lena's with an intensity that made Lena's breath catch. "And I was right." May raised her wine glass to impossible love stories and the courage to write your own ending. They clinked glasses, mother, daughter, and the woman who'd changed everything. And Lena felt her heart overflow with gratitude for the night she'd accepted an impossible proposal from a stranger and discovered that sometimes the greatest risks lead to the most beautiful rewards. Outside, the Houston night was warm and full of stars. Elsewhere in Silver City, a fountain kept time to music and the casino floor sparkled with counterfeit promises and neon lies. But here, in this moment, in a home built on honesty and love, Lena had found what money could never purchase: herself, her truth, and a love richer than all the fortunes in the world.